Gloria, South Dakota. I teach at South Dakota State University, mostly creative writing classes, some literature classes. Like the one strategy that I teach all of my students and everyone in every workshop that I do, and that's how to read as a writer. Because if you know how to read as a writer, then you can teach yourself the kinds of strategies from your favorite writers to kind of implement it to generate new work and to also revise your own work. So I'm mostly a poet. I have almost 8 books of poetry published. My new one is coming out next month, The Poet and the Architect. I'm also an essayist and a memoirist. So those are, I write across genres, although mostly poetry. As a writer, it means analyzing a piece of writing to understand how it functions and then using that to revise or invent your own. And here's the elements. Like, this is just a smattering of elements that you can look at and analyze: the details, the narrative, the subject, the point of view, the tension, the genre, the arrangement, all those rhetorical strategies. You can look at the diction, and you can start to look at closely at the way the writer uses them, and then you can borrow that for your own work and teach yourself some new things. So I'm going to show you how to do this, and I don't have much time, so I'm sorry. I wish we had more time, maybe in the future. So this is a poem that's in my new book called Didactic. And it has an epigraph: love is an intense form of curiosity. So throw open the library of your body, run your fingertips across the shelf spine, over atlases, dictionaries, novels. Your hands, wide, strong, are lenses that ignite encyclopedic knowledge. Let's burn in biography, biology, ask questions, unlock the map of scars, read lines of rib, linger at the hip, memorize the archive's lips. Stretch your supple pages until you are open, explicit, and known. So, of all the things that you see on that side, I'm going to show you 3 different ways that you could learn from my poem. Okay, so you could read my poem as a writer and learn from it. The first is the subject and the metaphor. So I use the metaphor of library, right? This poem compares the physical attraction to curiosity and intellectual pursuits. And so for me, I'm such a nerd. That's always like, oh, libraries, books, like museums, like that is sexy for me. I married another professor. He's an architect. Architecture professor. So anyway, you can kind of see where that goes. And in the book, my book starts out like this really intimate poetry and then kind of expands out. So you can say, all right, from this, I'm going to write a poem about love, and I'm going to compare love to, and then you come up with your own metaphor. Or you could even just say, I'm going to compare love to an intellectual pursuit, but my intellectual pursuit is cooking, or my interest is this, or my interest is that. So you can take and then try to translate how would you describe what it feels like to fall in love and be in love and all of that energy of that new relationship kind of thing in your own metaphor, and generate a new poem or a new story or a new essay. Like, this isn't just for poetry. You can do this with any genre, but you're really isolating one technique that the writer has used and then borrowing that for your own. So point of view is something else. This poem uses second person and addresses the lover. So I'll write a poem that addresses someone else too. And I call it didactic because it is like telling someone what to do. Throw open, it's like that second person, like do this and do that. And so it's this, I did that because of the teacher academic thing, and I wanted to kind of push against those ideas of libraries being boring and academics being boring, and redo that there a little bit. So you could take a second person point of view and write your own piece based on that point of view, and maybe teach someone something. Like, what do you want to teach, or what do you want to show, and take that really confident point of view, right? That the didactic, the teacherly has to be confident and assertive. That's the word I was looking for, assertive. So that's another way that you could use this poem. And then another way is the genre of the form. And frankly, like, this is one of my favorite things to do, is look at the way someone's arranged something. So I had to do this with my memoir, my manuscript memoir. I had never written one before, and so I had to really read carefully all the ways that other writers that I admired structured their memoir, because I was writing it like a poet and thinking about little bits, and I didn't think of the narrative arc until I had the whole thing written and had to like rewrite it with the narrative arc. So this is something that I do all the time with little and big things. So small poems and big manuscripts. But this poem uses like 6 tercets, 3-line stanzas with short lines. I'm going to imitate this structure for my poem, right? So you just actually borrow the structure or the arrangement and you use that for your own. I've done this, taken the rhyme words of the end of lines from somebody else's poem and written my own poem, totally different than that person's poem, except for the same rhyme lines at the end as a generative tool, the same like rhyming words, not lines, but the rhyming words at the end of the lines. It's just a fun exercise to kind of generate some new work and maybe some revision of a piece you're stalled out on. So I can stop the share there and talk a little bit more about any of those in depth that you had. Like, I know that was really like super fast. So I can talk a little bit more about any of those concepts and like kind of think through how I think through them when I'm looking at a poem or I'm looking at a piece to read as a writer. So to read it as a writer. So you can take the ideas, the subject matter, you can write your own version of it. You can look at you could even structurally, you can analyze the syllables or the metrics of the poem and use that for your own piece. When I'm writing essays, sometimes I look at like a segmented structure or a braided structure, because my essays are typically lyrical essays. So I look at the structure that someone else has used and I kind of say, okay, I could probably use that for my piece. Or endings, to be honest with you, I struggle with endings. I don't know, I have not mastered that yet after all these years. So I will look at the ends of like 5 or 6 pieces and I'll say, well, how did that person end this? Okay, what technique is that? How can I use that technique in my own piece to end my own? Oh, they've gathered up all the elements or all the images from the beginning of the piece and they've taken it through and brought it back to the end. Aha, I can do that for mine. What are my images in this essay or this piece that I'm going to gather up and put in the end for conclusion? Or, oh, this poem ends on this really fantastic like gesture or crisp image. Okay, I'm going to make sure that my poem ends on a similarly crisp image.